4 simple ways to make yourself really happy in just 10 minutes or less. This is the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. Find us Wednesdays for this videocast on YouTube. Our audio drops on Saturdays, and by all means check out focusgroupradio.com to learn about us and also our other podcast that comes out on Tuesdays called TFG Unbuttoned, about 20 minutes long, 3 stories, highly entertaining. How do you like that, Tim? That's how I'll say it.
You think so?
I think so. And also, big thanks to our friends at Deep Discount for bringing us to you every week. Visit focusgroupradio.com again and look for the Deep Discount logo. Click on that and start your shopping extravaganza. And I'll just say to kick off the show, I saw 3 articles this week about why we should still be buying DVDs and Blu-rays.
You did?
So if you think packaged media is gone, then wait till your favorite show is no longer on your streaming platform. And then you'll be like, well, how can I ever see it again? Well, if you had the DVD, what you get from from a Deep Discount or the Blu-ray, you'd be all set.
It's funny you say that because I had bought, a couple years ago, I had bought the entire I Love Lucy collection on DVD.
You got it at a great price, too.
I did, and you could still get it on Deep Discount, but they don't, there's no I Love Lucy down here. It's the first time in my life. I mean, I've lived all over the country. And so I went to try to watch it, and they want to charge me $3.99 an episode or something, which, you know, when you're used to getting all that for free. So, you know, thankfully I have the DVDs. And I have a friend of ours, one of our copywriters, sends me the daily update on what Lucy's on, where he is, and what show. So they're kind of funny.
Hey,
He'll do it in one word, so then you
really
guess the episode. And I watched something over the weekend that we were both going to watch, and I have an appreciation for it. So the movie Bros. Did you watch it yet?
No. So your takeaway?
So I watched it because it was free. It was a free viewing of it. I totally understand. So I like the premise or the idea of it, but to me it was totally unbelievable. Unbelievable in that the couple, Luke McFarlane and Billy Eichner, would be a couple. We all know gay, straight, or indifferent, lesbian, straight couples, whatever. We all know different couples, right? And you can tell you can assess a couple by saying, oh, they're good together, they complement one another, they'd be good for one another, whatever. This coupling to me made 0 sense. And I think that's probably why it didn't do well. There were some good moments, I think, in terms of some dialogue about how maybe gay people are treated or people that are more closeted than others, some of that sort of stuff that took place. There were some moments that I thought were very, very good and done well. But the coupling, to me, I just didn't buy it. I just couldn't believe that they were together.
So it wasn't even a case of opposites attract, you know, which happens all the time. One person complements the other. You just didn't buy the entire premise of why they would be.
I didn't buy them. I didn't buy them as a couple. Which, you know, Luke McFarlane is a very, very rugged, jockey, handsome, sexy guy with a body. And Billy Eichner is not. And the other guy is very masculine. Eichner is not. And the guys that McFarlane were attracted to when he would hook up at the bar and meet somebody at the bar were just not what Eichner was. Now, it was all about who's the right person. You know, you find the right person, whatever. It
Mr.
just was
Right.
not.
Yeah.
It was just not believable to me that somebody who played hockey in college and looked like this jock stud would hook up with who he hooked up with. And to me, that's where it fell apart for me. It just wasn't believable.
I've heard, I want to see it, and I've heard this from other people. But look, our own real life experience would inform you on how you view that movie. So, you know, you and I have been out to bars and clubs and years ago. And we just saw how the pattern was. Someone as good looking as Luke Macfarlane, or someone who had that look and that body type, tended to want to be with someone who was sort of a mirror image. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that's what they were attracted to the point where one time, years and years ago, I was out with my friend Ed, and I must have been checking someone out or whatever, and he sees it and he goes, "Oh, Nash," he goes, "the Sean Cody boys aren't looking at you." And I just couldn't stop laughing because he nailed it on the head, right? All right, so you saw that, and you got through the whole movie?
I did. I got bored. I will say I got bored because.
Can you compare it to the Bowen the movie, the Fire Island one that Bowen Yang was in?
I think this was better than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
But because I do think that there were some things where, there was one whole scene where Eichner talks about he did everything right in his career and felt more strongly about his job, was smarter at his job. And he kind of went through this whole thing about being in his job and being told you need to butch it up, essentially. And he'd been told that his whole life. And he talked about how he constantly was he felt he was looked over because he was not like the straight guys who were not maybe as competent or not as invested in their career as he was. I totally related to that. I thought it was very well done. There was a scene, they're sitting in P-Town, sitting on these chairs, just having a discussion. So there were parts like that I thought were very good and very realistic, and I thought were dead on, at least from my experience. But overall, I just did not believe the coupling.
Interesting.
So for me, that's where it fell apart for me.
And for any rom-com, it doesn't matter if it was Hepburn and Tracy, or Julia Roberts and George Clooney, or McFarland and Eichner.
Or Julia Roberts and who was she with in Pretty Woman? Richard Gere.
Richard Gere. You have to believe that chemistry. The two of them would. Yeah, I totally agree. That's interesting.
Yeah. So.
Hey, so for those of us new to our program, we kick off the show by catching up with each other, as we just did. We have a segment called Caught Our Eye, when we bring stuff to each other's attention that, is newsworthy, at least for us. Then sometimes we visit with our partner Deep Discount, followed by a business birthday, the only show in the universe that does that. And later in the show, we're going to have a shop talk that Tim found, which I really enjoyed. I teased it at the opener. It's 4 simple ways to make yourself really happy in 10 minutes or less, backed by Harvard research. That's the part that I didn't say at the beginning. So if it's backed by research, it's got to be true. So without further ado, let's get into it.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Mr. Bennett, you're up.
So I'd found this story that I guess I never thought about. And so speaking of studies, so the headline is, why don't cashiers in the United States get to sit like the ones in Europe? So they said that seated cashiers are the norm in European supermarkets, so why don't U.S. workers get to do the same thing and have the same right? And I thought about it. I guess I didn't think about it, but we've talked about Aldi on this show many times.
Tim, you literally ripped it out of my head. I was at Aldi this weekend. We need to do an Aldi or a Trader Joe's show again. We have I bought the chicken breast you recommended. Great. Okay. Yep. Anyway, they sit at Aldi.
They sit. So, and that's a very European thing and a UK thing. And in the US, we stand. And so there's a Francois Carre, C-A-R-R-E. He's a research director at UMass in Boston. And so he invited his European colleagues to come. He was doing this retail study, research, and about low-wage work. And so he invited the Europeans and people from the UK to come observe retail stores in the U.S. and how the workers did their duties. And so they went to Target. And he said as soon as the Europeans came in, he said they all just looked at him and said, "Why are they standing?" They couldn't believe that all the cashiers were standing. So he just kind of looked up and said, "Well, what do you mean? That's what we do here." And he said that in America, cashiers stand. And he said that's due to managerial expectations of customer service and productivity. And they said that customers who would see somebody sitting would think that somebody is just not being engaged or not there to offer help or service. They said in Europe, the responsibilities differ. In other words, cashiers in Europe don't bag for you. and offer you zero service. In the U.S., you're expected to bag, right? So there's been a lot of U.S. cashiers that have filed these right-to-sit laws, and particularly women, because they said that standing for X amount of hours on your feet is not healthy, and it causes other sorts of issues, and back pain and so forth. And so they want to have this right-to-sit law, but the U.S. will not they're not going there. They said that the expectation, and they're trying to fight the unions on this, is that you're present, you're available, you're flexible, you can move, you can pack. And so what the U.S. has done for these low-wage cashiers, different than Europe, is they've assigned them other duties. So that means that they can't sit all day on their shift. So they might have to clean, they might have to stock shelves. And they said that the other thing that they found was that there is now, it's called an example of path dependency. So they said this is what's happened in the U.S. It's a practice that continues just because it's precedent. So this path of dependency happens in the UK because that's precedent, and in the U.S. And they said for us in the U.S. it evolved because we went from a general store or a general grocery store where the person would do everything, fetch the item, pack the item, carry the item to the car. They said that didn't never happen in Europe. And so this is a holdover. This standing at the cash as a cashier is ingrained into us. And then they gave the example of Costco, and they said, you know, Costco acts very much like a European store in that you're left on your own to get it out and pack it. But they said we still have Costco cashiers stand; they will not sit.
That's correct. Yeah.
So they said it's a cultural thing with the U.S. The other thing that they've said that these unions have warned, because there were a couple of lawsuits, of course, out of California, where the cashiers from CVS and Walmart sued, and they won a $65 million lawsuit, 100,000 workers. But what's happened now is these companies are pushing back and saying, okay, if you want to do that, we will just add more self-checkout lines, and we don't need cashiers. So the workers now are saying, you know what, do I stand and have a job, or do I fight this and the possibility of them eliminating cashiers altogether? So that was the risk of it. But I thought it was just simply a cultural thing. Never thought about it. I never thought, you know, we've all been places where our cashiers always stand, but in Europe they sit, and in the UK.
Yeah, and at Aldi.
Which is a European store, right?
Store, yeah.
And they don't pack.
No, they do not.
Right.
They put the stuff in the cart, and you have to roll it over and put it in, and you have to bag it yourself, the whole thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a cultural service thing. They did say, however, France has done a study on this, and they said that actually when you do sit, they scan far more products than when you, which does drive me crazy about Aldi. Before you get to the cart, the stuff's all through and in the cart.
There's a cashier. So I think that's a fascinating story, and it never dawned on me that we have such a big difference. You're right about the throughput. Right. If the seated cashier at Aldi is proof that you can move those things over the scanner faster sitting than standing, they prove it every time, because we had this same experience.
Yeah.
He pulled the cart around. I was still finishing up. By the time I walked
stuff on the belt,
it was, the eggs were in the top. Everything was just in there and ready to go. You're all set. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. So in Europe, France has the greatest scanners. They apparently scan more than any other place in terms of speed, and the U.S. is the slowest. But they said the U.S. is the slowest because we stand.
So we did an Aldi run based on some of your recommendations, because we have a new one. They relocated our Aldi and they built a new building, and it's way nicer. I got to tell you, the produce section's great. But I looked for specific things you mentioned, namely frozen chicken breast.
Yep.
Now, the stuff I got was pre-seasoned with a little
the red bag.
It was and this is the other one we were laughing at. It's called Kirkwood.
Right.
Which
it's got to be a red bag. Though.
It wasn't red. It was like organic breast, and it was they had put like some herb on it and some like a seasoning, so you could literally cut it up after it's defrosted and grill it, and you're all set. It was delicious. I'll look for the red bag, because I also found chicken. There was one that was chicken cutlets that were cut in strips.
Yep.
But when Bob and I looked at the bags for the money, the plain old chicken breast was the cheapest of them all, and as you got more cut up, whatever, it got more expensive. But we had a great time at I don't usually say that about Aldi, but it was a whole different experience now that they upgraded the store.
Well, I got in trouble in Aldi this weekend because they had a bunch of glass, like mercury glass Christmas trees.
Oh, they were probably on sale, right?
Well, they were $24.99, and then they were marked down to $12.99. Then they were $6.49. I said to Richard, we should get some of these or whatever. So then I'm in the store. They were $3.42.
Wow.
They're like these German glass trees are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some woman rattling around over there, some older woman, and I go through with my car. I called Richard. Said, get them all. Buy them all.
How many were there?
There was like 24 or whatever. So I go in with the cart, and the woman's rooting through stuff. And I say, excuse me. And I reach down and pull out one pallet, put it in the cart, pull out she goes, selfish. And I said, what? She goes, why are you taking all those? I said, well, they're for sale. And I said, and I'd like to have them. Maybe give them as gifts or whatever. She goes and gets the manager.
Really? Did this?
Oh, yeah.
I did not think that was going to escalate like that. Okay.
So the manager's like, well, did you want these? Well, no. And the manager just laughed. I said, do you want the box back that they came in? I said, or she's like, no, and just, waved her hand away.
She was trying to make some kind of crazy point.
But I just laughed and I said, they're on sale and it's Christmas was a month ago.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I just laughed because it was
selfish.
Selfish. I love that stuff. That happened to me at IKEA. I told you that at the time.
Mm-hmm. With
and
candles.
When Kate and I bought them for the focus group at 49 cents. And Kate was quick on her feet when the manager came over. We had pallets. We had to have the forklift thing take them out to our SUVs, to the cars. We had so many of them. What are you doing with these? She goes, we're getting married. We're going to line the church and the walkways with them.
Your friend Kate did that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
we're getting married.
Is.
Well, Patrick and Howard and everybody were laughing. They said, you should have told the manager, oh, I'm taking these to the orphanage up the street.
But for the children.
They're for the children.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what caught your eye?
Keeping with a trend of things that are found that are valuable. Mine is a 1979 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am is a barn find. Now, this is going to definitely appeal to some of our listeners, namely Billy in upstate New York and probably Joe in Connecticut, because Joe has a lot of beautiful car pics on his Facebook page as well, right? So it's this barn find. The car was driven just 37 miles. It's up for auction. It's a classic Pontiac in absolute perfect condition and still runs. To give you some perspective on this, there were 4 new Dodge Darts that were sold in 2022, even though the car went out of production in 2016. But they're whippersnappers compared to this 1979 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am that's been driven less than 37 miles over 44 years. So that's like less than a mile a year, right? I mean,
I guess the guy started it or the woman started it every month or so.
Right? Here's what the barn find was discovered by the team at Restore a Muscle Car in Nebraska, which has a knack for digging up old cars. The 79 car is a 2-door hardtop with a 6.6-liter engine that's in running condition and is possibly the lowest mileage example left in the world.
Wow.
Restore Car marketing manager Tom Heglin told Fox News that the family that owned it had purchased, this is the part, Tim, that gets me, they purchased 4 identical cars as investments and stored them in a building on their farm in Michigan.
Wow.
It was still covered in dust when they came to pick it up, but it just needed new fluids, a fuel system flush, and a battery to get it going. So you and I know a lot about cars. What I'm surprised about this is, wouldn't there be some rubber hose decay or something that might have just, fallen apart as the years have gone by? I mean, this is like total luck that they got this thing going like that, right?
Yeah, no, there would maybe dry rot and some of the
That's the word I'm looking for,
dry
rot,
right?
Yeah.
Gaskets and some of those things. But if this is the picture of the car, it looks fantastic.
It's beautiful. That is the picture. Cleaned up. They washed it up. The interior is in perfect shape. It's a red leather interior. The black coupe has a red leather interior, all its original parts, including a set of Uniroyal steel-belted radial tires. Like, I haven't heard that phrase in quite a while. All the paperwork has survived as well, including the window sticker that shows its original price was $8,300.45.
Wow.
So here's the kicker. According to Haggerty, the Restore a Muscle Car guy, one in perfect show car condition has a valuation of around $70,000. but that doesn't take into account the ultra-low mileage this has. So they believe that this car will go far higher than the 70K because it only has 37 miles on it. I mean, the thing is a gorgeous vehicle. I mean, right out of the past, right?
Yeah, I am sure General Motors has a couple of these, but they're probably in the museum. I laugh about it. I love the Firebird hood, the hood decal, because we ever make cars now with a hood decal like that?
No, we don't. And not in the scoop, scoop to get the more air for that combustion.
Yeah, the wing in the back. I mean,
so that was the primary caught my eye, and I have a secondary one that may be a surprise. It's just a recommendation for a TV show, and if our good friend Lauren, our marketing partner out at Deep Discount, is listening, she's on top of all the good shows and movies. So she might chime in and say, guys, so there is a Twitter, I often say that Twitter is like a septic tank, but there are some fun things on there, including a feed by an actor in England called Michael Warburton, and he posts wonderful little clips from movies and birthdays of stars and just great little Hollywood and cinema and TV trivia and facts. One day he posted this thing and he said, if you're not watching Tulsa King, then you're not watching an Oscar-winning performance by Sylvester Stallone. Oh my God. And all the comments under it were like, what are you talking about? Rocky, you got to be crazy. It's on Paramount Plus. If you don't subscribe, just get it for a month. There's only 9 episodes of this show. They're about 40 minutes apiece. Sylvester Stallone plays a recently released from jail mobster. He'd been in for 25 years, and the Don of the family, like the mafia family, they send him to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They said, you can run the whole city. Tulsa's yours. Bob was so resistant to watching this because he has this kind of pre-made thought process about Sylvester Stallone. After the first premiere episode, which is probably about 45 minutes, he said, can we watch the second one? I'm like, okay. So we watched the second, and Bob goes, we got to draw this out. This is really, really good. It's really well written, and it's quite surprising. So that's the other caught my eye.
So Tulsa King. Yeah, that's interesting because I'm probably like anything? Bob. Well, Sylvester Stallone will just always forever be coined as Rocky. Yeah. And that character, right? So
he is a surprise in this. In fact, I would say that if you're a fan of The Sopranos, you are going to love this because his depiction is incredibly nuanced. We're enjoying it, and we're going to let it.
So, do you know anything about Tulsa? He just gets, as soon as nothing about Tulsa, just goes there and is going to make a life.
He gets a one-way ticket. He lands. The first person he meets is a cab driver, a young black guy named Tyson, I think his name is. And they become friendly, and Tyson ends up becoming his driver. And let's just say that since he's been in jail for 25 years, things like smartphones, debit cards, no one pays with cash anymore. Yeah. A lot of these things pop up in really hilarious ways that he has to solve. And yeah, it's so I just recommend that.
I have to watch it. So it's on Paramount Plus?
Paramount Plus, Tulsa King, yeah. You can probably get it.
I have that.
You might get it. You could do it as an add-on through Amazon or stuff like the Amazon Prime, but I think for $4 or $5.99 a month, it would be worth just to see that because it's a surprise. It totally is taking me by surprise. And you know what? We're gonna wait for Lauren to chime in later in the week. She'll be like, "Guys, I'm with you," or she'll say, "John's right." So there you go.
There you go. So hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got our business birthday, and we have a shop talk that John mentioned about 4 things out of 7, but there's a challenge on things you should do each week to make you happy. And I'll be curious to see whether you agree or not. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is our site. You'll learn all about us there, including our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, which I encourage you to start listening to. And you could subscribe to that by subscribing to our feed on any of your podcast platforms of choice, or you can visit us here on our YouTube channel and see us in all our glorious video. And depending on internet speeds and how things are going, sometimes we're super sharp, sometimes we're a little fuzzy.
Matt reprimanded us and said we're not supposed to ask for subscribers anymore.
Oh, yes, you're right.
For followers.
Followers.
Because subscribe means pay.
Tim, doesn't that sound like we're going down to Jim Jones land or something? Let's have a follower.
Let's have a follower. Come follow me, little one, little sheep.
No.
Bring me the light, young neophyte.
Crossover children, all are welcome. I thought you said they shouldn't go into the light. Poltergeist was on Halloween this year. When you watch Poltergeist now, I thought it was the scariest movie back then. Now it seems like good old-fashioned fun.
And you laugh.
when the skeletons are doing when she's in the pool. And Anyway, I digress, and we're way off the rails because now it's time for Business Birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
We still are the only show, and if you want to own the content, give us a call. Send us a note. Celebrating happy 68th birthday, born January 25th, 1955, is Toru Iwatani. He's a Japanese video game designer, and he spent most of his career at a company called Namco in Tokyo. But he's best known as the creator of the arcade game Pac-Man in 1980. So he developed Pac-Man. He was born in Tokyo, Japan, as I said, January 25th. He graduated from university there with an engineering focus. But he had self-taught himself computers. He had no formal training about programming or graphical design. He was all self-taught. And they said he would often fill his school books with scattered images and different things he wanted to do graphically. And he said that those characters that he would draw in the games that he would make up while he was sitting in these engineering classes were really the major influence of him as he got into this video game development. So at 22, he joined the Japanese video game publisher Namco. And that was in 1977. And they said right before he joined them, they had acquired the rights to the Japanese division of Atari.
That's interesting. I thought you said the Japanese division of Atari.
Right. And they said that gave them the rights to distribute many of those companies' games, such as Breakout.
Yep.
I don't remember Breakout. They said because of the unprecedented success that Namco had, they decided that they wanted to produce their own video games in-house, instead of relying on acquiring them from other companies. So Iwatani was assigned to the video game development division. And he originally wanted to create pinball video games. And the executive said, no, we can't do that because there's too many patent-related issues. So as a compromise, they allowed him to create a video-based game that was somewhat of a concept of pinball. And so he and another designer came up with GB, which was released in 1978. Are you familiar with GB?
No, it doesn't even sound familiar to me.
Yeah, I'm not either. So they said it was successful, and it helped Namco get a foothold in the expanding video game market. And then there were two sequels released, Bombi and Cutie Q, which were released in 1979. So they said that Iwatani, in 79, he grew disappointed with the video game industry. And he said he also felt that the market only appealed to men, and the only way he could bring them into the tent was with violent war games and violent games, such as he mentioned Space Invaders, which I would have never thought was violent, or sports games, he said, reminiscent of Pong. He said the industry was very male-focused. So he had said to himself, he asked if he could design a game that would be more friendly to females. And so that's how he came up with Pac-Man. And he said it was an astronomical success in North America, quickly sold over 100,000 arcade units. It became the best-selling and highest-grossing arcade game of all time. And it is Namco's, to this day, still most successful video game of all time. After its release, he was promoted to the senior ranks at Namco and became responsible for overseeing the entire administration of the company. However, in typical Japanese fashion, despite the success of Pac-Man, he did not receive any bonus or any change of salary or any sort of accolades for his putting Namco on the map with Pac-Man. Yep.
Arguably one of the biggest video games ever, right?
Yeah, and they said that he it said it's often repeated that he left Namco furious at the lack of any recognition or addition to his pay. He says that was false. I'm not so sure.
I'd buy it.
Yeah. He went out on his own and developed a couple of games in the 80s, one of them called Libble Rabble, which was a twin-stick puzzler game. He also produced Rally X, Galaga, Pole Position, Ridge Racer, Time Crisis, a number of other things. But in 2005, he decided that he was going to go teach character design at Osaka University of the Arts as a visiting professor. And in 2007, he became a full-time lecturer at the Tokyo Polytechnic University. And he did return to his Pac-Man roots in 2007. He developed a Pac-Man Championship Edition for Xbox 360. And he had noted when he did that that would be the last game he would ever develop. He received in 2010 a certificate from the Guinness Book of World Records from the success of Pac-Man with 293,822 coin-operated arcade machines, the most sold of any game to date.
All right, so there's Pac-Man. There was Ms. Pac-Man. There was Tabletop Pac-Man.
Yeah.
There was the thing about Pac-Man and about this business birthday that I really love and fascinates me is Pac-Man as a game really depended on standing at a console and moving the handle, right? Have you ever tried, like, there's a couple of like iPad or iPhone Pac-Man-like things where you use your finger to move around.
Right.
It was the joystick and the cabinet and the putting the quarter on it or the tabletop thing that made that insanely popular, right?
Yeah, he said when he created the game that, as I said, he wanted it to appeal to women, and so it needed to be cute, colorful, easy to understand. And he said the whole concept of the game is based around one concept, and I never thought of this, I guess, or even, do you know what the concept would be? He said he based the whole game around this one concept that we all do.
That we all do.
Yeah.
No, because I'm thinking of the ghosts eating the things and leveling up.
You said the word eating. He said the whole concept is just based around eating.
Serious. You know what? Now that you said it, it's like.
So there's the pretzel, there's the strawberry, there's the banana, right?
Yeah, it's all about eating.
Yeah, it's
you
all
eat the
about
dots.
It's all about eating. Everybody eats. Everybody can relate.
So let me tell you, we were watching. Remember Sex in the City?
Yep.
So we were watching a rerun or something on E Network, and I said, you know, Bob, Sex in the City. The guy who wrote it, I think it was Michael Patrick King, often would say in interviews that the Sex in the City's characters are based off of gay men. Samantha, Charlotte, you know. There was Carrie, the always looking for true love. There was Miranda, the lawyer who was a little uptight. There was Charlotte, who had to have fairy book, thing with the prince. And there was, who was Kim Cattrall's character? Why am I spaced? Samantha. And she was kind of the slut, right? And the minute I said this is all about gay men, Bob goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "The whole show now makes complete sense." So when you said that Pac-Man is about eating,
yeah. It's a concept about eating, and everybody could relate to, and there was colorful characters, and it so it brought females into the fold.
Jeez Louise!
And I do remember in college the amount of women who played Pac-Man were equal to that of men. It was the one game where there was certainly an awful lot of women who played too, and were good at it.
And they were very good, and that was the fun part of it too. Yeah. I mean, there were games like Defender and Tempest and Frogger. Like some games definitely had more of a male bent to them, I suppose.
Yeah.
God, I remember Pac-Man championships at the college pub, drinking cheap beer.
Yeah, one of the last times I played, I was not doing well in chemistry, and I was also the student body president. My advisor catches me at the Pac-Man machine, and he had a kind of this southern drawl or whatever, although he was a Dartmouth guy. But he comes up to me and he goes, "Mr. Bennett, if I was making a D in chemistry, I don't think I'd be here playing Pac-Man." And I'm like, I'm just kind of, "Oh, hi, Doc Hartel. The last student body president was a Phi Beta Kappa." And he's going, finally, he's like, "Brr, brr, brr, brr."
You got eaten.
And I got out of there because I just thought he was going to stay there and berate me until I left the video game.
Or until you became a Phi Beta Kappa, right?
Yeah, last student body president was Phi Beta Kappa.
Phi Beta Kappa. Oh my God,
not me.
So. My school was so big. College was so. I know your school. I got to visit it with you on one of our road trips. And speaking of road trips, total sidebar. Did you happen to catch CBS Sunday Morning, where they showed the opening of a museum in Jamestown, New York, the Museum of Comedy?
No, is it all around Lucy?
Well, no, it's dedicated to Carl Reiner.
Oh,
but
really?
They put it in Jamestown because Carl Reiner, the legacy of comedy with Lucille Ball and him.
Right.
I think that's a road trip for sure.
Yeah, we have to go there. How far is Jamestown from?
5 hours from our house in upstate New York. So you're looking at it's like going to Pittsburgh.
Is it Western New York?
Totally Western. Like totally like above Pittsburgh. Yeah, so it's like a big trip.
Maybe we'll go to Pittsburgh and spend some time at Pittsburgh. And then on the way back, stop in Jamestown.
I want to go to Jamestown, so we have to make this happen.
Well, let's do that. We'll do that in the spring.
Maybe all right,
maybe we'll get a Tesla. It'll take us 5 weeks by the time we charge it up every day.
Or we should choose to go in the winter so the battery dies quick, charging all the time.
Where are you? We're in Havre de Grace.
We're 20 miles. It's going to take forever to get there. All right, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Tim found a great article called 4 Ways to Make Yourself Really Happy in 10 Minutes or Less, backed by Harvard Research. Minda Zetlin is the author of the piece. It came out in Inc. magazine, Inc.com. And it's an 85-year-long study reveals the secret to long-term happiness. Should you try it? They broke it down into 4 big sections here. And I think as we go through it, you're going to see a lot of things that you could simply just do without even thinking too much about it. The first one is plan an 8-minute phone call with a friend. I'm not even sure I have to read what they wrote here because it says it all, right? Like, and what they get into, the minutia that they get into is you don't have to. It could be anybody. It could be someone you haven't spoken to in a year and a half, someone you spoke to a week ago. Keep it short, keep it sweet. How you doing? How's your family? The results of that for both parties are enormous. Like you feel really great after a call like that. I happen to agree with this, and I would say anybody should just do it today.
Right. And I like the idea. They said most people feel when you haven't talked to a friend in a while that you stay on the phone too long. Both parties agree. Yeah. Happy to hear from one another, but the conversation will drag on. And so they gave the example here of the one woman, she had called her friend while she was going to the dry cleaner. So it was a defined time. And they said 8 minutes, you can get a lot done in 8 minutes. And you should adhere to the 8-minute rule, which I thought was great. I've done that. I'd be in the car and jump in somewhere and call somebody. But I love that idea. Oh, my God,
Tim, the car, like you and I, since we're lovers of hands-free technology, I love making a phone call from a car because you're already a captive audience. As long as your eyes are on the road, you're good, right?
Yeah, and the one takeaway I took from this at the very end is that hearing someone's voice is far more powerful or is a far more powerful way to connect than texting them or chatting over social media. So make the 8-minute phone call today.
Yeah.
Number 2 was start a conversation with a stranger. This is not me. This is you. Mm-hmm. I don't like to chat people up, but I know you do. So they said research has shown that starting a conversation with a stranger will increase our happiness. So maybe I need to do this, even when we don't expect that it will. So it gave the example of if you were in a checkout line or something or walking in the neighborhood and came across someone with a dog or something, just strike up a conversation, and you never know where it will lead to. And I know you do that a lot.
I do it all the time, and I have a favorite story I've told before. It's a recent one, but it's in the depths of the pandemic. We were waiting online at 6th Avenue and I think it was like 55th Street. Bob and I had to get a COVID test, and it was freezing out. It's winter. And a woman was standing in front of us, and she looks at us, and I looks away and looks again. And I said, did you ever suspect that this is how your life would be on this day in December of whatever? You'd be standing in front of a van with someone in a hazmat suit shoving a Q-tip through a plastic meat curtain up your nose to get a sample. And she goes, no. She goes, I did not. She goes, it's practically dystopic. And I said, and we're right around the corner from the Ziegfeld, one of my favorite movie theaters in New York. And she goes, oh, my God. She goes, you're so right. She goes, let me tell you guys something. She said, my first class trip ever. She goes, I grew up here in the city in the Bronx. I live right across the street. And she said, my first class trip was to a movie at the Ziegfeld, and it was seeing Rock Hudson in Ice Station Zebra, which was on TCM recently. A satellite comes down, and the U.S. and Russia raced. It's a Russian satellite. We had a great conversation, and and she's like, have a happy holiday. I hope you guys come back with a negative result, the whole bit. And it's just that kind of thing. And Bob loves it, but he doesn't initiate it. And I think that's the thing. I think we're afraid of saying something to somebody, right?
Yeah. No, and you've always been good about just chatting people up. I tend to be quiet.
Hey, I got a lot of information that way. There's a guy that mans our subway station at 183rd, and I was bringing some art books. There's a free shelf there. You could put books and stuff for people to take, specifically kids. But I had these nice art books, and the guy says to me, he goes, hey, man, how you doing? I don't know his name. He doesn't know mine, but I see him, and we always talk about parking and driving and all this other stuff. He said, you're dropping those books off for the free shelf. They're not going to stick around. They ain't sticking around. In fact, some guy's going to come around and grab those because they're good books. Then he's going to hustle and go downtown and sell them. I said, no, that's not going to happen. He goes, man, you don't know New York. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's a hustle on top of a hustle on top of a hustle.
I was going to say, was it DJ James Anthony come get the books?
Yeah.
Remember he used to sell the books out of...
He would get the free. He'd take him to the Strand. He would take him to the Strand and get him
a fortune each month.
Yeah. All right. So the next one here, I think this is perhaps difficult now if you're working remotely, but it was get to know someone at work. Work friends are incredibly important, particularly in the high pressure and long hours that go with starting a business. Yes, we don't always recognize the value of these relationships, so choose someone at work you would like to get to know better. This could be an acquaintance who you'd like to turn into a friend, or someone you don't know at all but would like to get to know. I have my favorite work friend story is when I was at Avenue Magazine as a typesetter, chief typographer. One of the editors was named David, and we used to go out to lunch together all the time, and he was gay as well. And he introduced me to Ella Fitzgerald, a couple of other famous female singers that I had no idea existed. And so, work friends can lead to some pretty cool stuff, I think.
Right. I never understood. I didn't hear about this later on in the passage there. It says, or use the Ben Franklin effect. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So it says the Ben Franklin effect is when you ask someone to do a small, easy favor, and as something to do with people from work. But I never heard of that. I had no idea what that was. I never heard of the Ben Franklin.
And you love Ben Franklin.
And I love Ben Franklin, so for me that was an odd one. The last one here is send someone a thank you message. It said research shows that this simple gesture creates immediate happiness benefits for both the person doing it and the person receiving it, receiving the thanks. It said it could be someone you haven't talked to in a long time or someone you haven't spoken to in years, and you could just send them some sort of thanks message, and maybe it's thanks for something you did to me that I never acknowledged, or thank you for being a friend like the Golden Girls. So that was a nice one. People do appreciate when you get a nice handwritten thank you note.
I even go beyond handwritten thank you note now. I think that and that was the funny thing they said here, a thank you message.
Thank you message, right?
So after, when I see a friend for lunch or something, about a half hour after I go off my way and they go theirs, I'll send a note just saying, thanks for a fun lunch. It was great catching up today. And you usually get like a smiley face back, right. Or, oh, yeah, it was so good to catch up. I just think it's such a simple thing to do, and it really doesn't take a lot of time, but it does make people feel better. So this is what Tim was referring to when he kicked this off with me. It's there's a challenge in here. And at the end, they say, if you can, try one of these 10-minute challenges every day next week. Altogether, they will take only about an hour of your time. And at the end of the week, ask yourself if these small steps made you feel better than you would have if you had not done them. If the answer is yes, should you make them part of your routine every week? So to review, it's plan a simple 8-minute call with a friend. Okay. Start a conversation with a stranger, get to know someone at work, or send someone a thank you message. Now, I feel like I do this challenge already, but...
Yeah, I do to a certain extent as well, because I laughed when it gave the challenge because I thought, okay, do you have 52 friends you could send a thank you note to? Or do You know what I mean? If you're going to do it every week.
Yeah.
You know, so it would be tough. But I think this is just good things to adhere to. You know, my friend Steve, who I hadn't seen in quite a while, we kept promising we were going to get together and see one another. When I go to New York, he comes to Philly, whatever the issue was. And we never did it. And so he made it a point when I talked to him around the holidays and said, I'm coming down. And just made a boom, boom. Because what the overall theme here is if you say you'll put it off or you don't have time, you'll never have time.
You're right.
You're going to never have time. You'll never find the time. So you just have to do it and get in the practice of doing it. So it's I thought it was a good positive piece and
great piece for the kickoff of 2023. Yeah.
So hey, we want to thank you for joining us here on the Focus Group. Thank you, John, for guiding the ship as you do. And thanks to all of you for listening to us. You'll find out all about us at focusgroupradio.com. You'll find our sponsors there as well, including Deep Discount. Click on their logo, start shopping away. And you'll also find all of our media houses, including our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. I guess this is a podcast too now.
It is. They're both. Yeah.
I don't know what to
long,
say.
One's short.
Should we call them the same thing? I don't know.
Yeah. You and I, we have.
If you have any ideas, let us know. Send it to letters. Yeah. Right. Send it to letters at focusgroupradio.com. John will get it. And if you have an idea of maybe some programming changes we should institute.
Oh, and hey, on that note, thank you, listeners, for sending us. We've gotten some great notes from people who may have had some audio issues,
right,
or video things, and it's a great. And they get socks in return. We try to fix the problem. You send us a note, you get some socks.
Here you go, being inundated now, Nash.
Yeah.
Sock requests. So remember, everybody, be careful out there as well. Don't arrive alive. Don't text and drive. Don't text and drive. Arrive alive. I always say it backwards. That's my.
You invented it.
I know. It's my dyslexic something. Anyway, have a great week, and we'll see you in the new one. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.